everybody. Thank you for tuning in with me, PLO Professor here. So, it's been a couple of weeks since I had a video put out. I was in Texas for 2 weeks, grinding it out. I have a full report on Texas, full report on pot limit Omaha. First of all, thank you guys for tuning in and watching this episode. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. I'm going to put a link with all the merchandise down below. Keep in mind, we have a When in Doubt, Pot It Out shirt that's out. We also have Are You Staring at My Wiener? Because I have wiener dogs. And then what's coming out shortly is the 10 Commandments of Pot Limit Omaha. So that's the next shirt that is coming out. Hopefully it'll be out by the time this video comes out. But it's kind of cool because it gives you like a scenario, when in doubt, pot it out, stuff like that. I'll put all that link down below. Now, as some of you may have heard, I have been in the news lately. I am one of the featured dancers on Dancing with Our Stars. That's correct. It's a charity raiser for UP Health and Home Hospice Care. So this is a situation in which I've had some personal experience with hospice with my former father-in-law, and currently my brother is going through some home health care, which may be hospice. It's ran by the same people, and so 100% of the proceeds will go to the organization. It's a fundraiser. We have a dance-off on May 24th and May 25th, my wife and I do. And yeah, it's going to be on television. It's for a good reason. It's for raising funds. I'm going to put a link down below where you can go ahead and donate. And not only that, but every $10 that you donate counts towards a vote. Whichever dancers raise the most amount of money are the ones that are going to win the competition. So please help me win this competition. I get zero from it as far as monetary reasons. It's 100% just to raise money for a good cause, because, you know, in the poker world, or just in our world in general, doing things that are good for the community or for the greater good really has a nice, positive, long-lasting impact. So I'll put all that link stuff down below. In this video right here, what we're going to talk about is some pre-flop raising, getting some equity in. This was day one of the lodge. Now, I know what you're thinking. Professor, give us the full report on Pot Limit Omaha in Texas. Okay, here it comes. The full report on Pot Limit Omaha in Texas. The thing you've been waiting for. Don't go to Texas to play Pot Limit Omaha. I said it. I know some of you Texans are going to hate me for saying it. A lot of people say, oh my God, the action is crazy in Texas. Now, let me tell you this. I went to Texas 3 years ago. My worst day in Texas was plus 864. I went to Texas 3 times 3 years ago. Every time I went, I wanted to go for 5 days. I ended up staying for 10 days. Every time it was like printing money. It was just hitting the print button, print. It's not like that anymore. Now, what happened is you have a lot of European professional poker players who heard the action is just crazy in Texas. So what did they do? They all came here to Texas to play. So when you sit down, whether it's at the Lodge, TCH Dallas, whether it's in Houston, even at Legends, there were European pros who were very tight players playing. Yep. I would say if you're making a trip to Texas, if you're planning on a trip to Texas, first of all, the tournaments have great value. So A+ rating on tournaments. The Lodge tournament series I thought was really good. A+ on the value of tournaments. If you're going to Texas for tournaments, that's a good reason to go to Texas. If you're going to Texas to play Pot Limit Omaha cash games, that's a really bad reason to go to Texas. If you're looking for some of the best Pot Limit Omaha games in the world or in the country, you either need to go to Best Bet Jacksonville, Chicago, Illinois, or MGM Grand Detroit. And actually, I would say Best Bet and MGM Grand are probably the same. You're going to end up seeing a lot of people who are deep stacked, a lot of 3-betting and 4-betting going on pre-flop, a lot of people who are loose. So those are really good games that you want to look for. All the meetup games, whether it was at Georgetown Poker Club, the action was absolutely just crazy. When we did our meetup game at the Hideaway, that was bonkers. Oh my God. Hideaway and Georgetown were completely bonkers. And then when we did our meetup game at Elite Poker Social, that was a pretty juicy game as well. I think the first hand I lost like $1,400 right after winning a tournament. So it was like, oh, half of my tournament winnings just away in one hand. So our meetup games were great. we found out that there wasn't a lot of Big O that is at the clubs because all the Big O players apparently went underground. So that was a little disappointing that we didn't get very many Big O games except during our meetup games. But for those of you who showed up at our meetup games, thank you so much. For those of you who came, brought action, thank you so much. You guys were a relief, to say the least. But thank you guys for tuning in. Link, merchandise, donations, everything is going to be listed down below in the description. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe. And as always, everybody, enjoy the video and play smart and run like a god. First hand we're going to look at is a double board bomb pot. One of the things I do want to talk about, particularly because it is Texas, is double board bomb pots are pretty frequent. So every time a dealer shift gets pushed, you end up doing a double board bomb pot when you're on a PLO table. When you're on a no limit hold'em table, you can actually specify whether or not you want to be on a double board bomb pot hold'em table or not. So if you are going to Texas and you're waiting for a PLO game and you're playing 2-card poker while you're waiting, make sure if you do want to play double board bomb pots that it is a no limit hold'em game that has that, and you'll actually play double board bomb pots every 8 hands instead of every dealer push. Now the reason why I mention that is because one can actually make the argument that you might be better off playing 2-card poker, no limit hold'em in some places in Texas, and then every 8 hands or so playing double board bomb pots, either because hold'em players don't fully understand all the odds of pot limit Omaha, or they might not have a full grasp on double board bomb pots. So just make a little mental note to yourself that there may be a better edge for a lot of players by playing hold'em and playing double board bomb pots than just playing straight out PLO, depending on where you're at in Texas, because the pot limit Omaha in Texas has changed quite dramatically over the last 3 years and even especially over the last 6 months. In any case, this hand right here, we have A7, 8, 8. On the first board, we have 3, 10, 10. On the second board, we have Queen, 6, 4. And the Queen and the 4 are both of the heart variety, just like our Ace, 8. So we actually have the nut flush draw on the bottom with a gut shot straight draw. And we have a full house draw on the top. Now, I know what you're thinking. Board is paired up top, Professor. That's not a board that I want to continue on because somebody can be super nutted with a 10-3. Obviously, they can. Typically, when you have a paired board on double board bomb pots, people are going to either call those hands when they either have one of those pairs in their hand, so for example, 10x, or they're going to call when they have a pocket pair in their hand, particularly when they have an overpair, because it's a way that you can make a big pot huge if you end up turning the nut full house. So anybody with like jacks, queens, or kings can probably continue on the top board. On the bottom board, it's super wet. Obviously, we have the nut draw. We also have a straight draw. We are blocking straight draws as well, but anybody with like 3, 5, 7, some kind of wrap on the bottom is going to continue. So when you're looking at double board bomb pots and you're looking at your hand, obviously you want to think, well, what can I do? What are my 2 best cards that I can get? On the bottom board, any heart obviously will work. Anything that gives us any type of equity on the top board. So any ace, any 9, any 6, 8, 7, jack. Those are all cards that we're going to want to see. Now we have a $100 bet, and there ends up being 5-way action going into the turn. Now the turn is going to be a pretty decent one for us. The turn on the top brings in a jack, and it brings in the 5 of hearts on the bottom. So now we have the nut flush on the bottom. We are super nutted. The only way we can lose this pot, or half of this pot, is if the bottom board ends up pairing. Right now, we are guaranteed to get half the pot. So a lot of people, when they have this situation in double board bomb pots, are just gonna bomb the hell out of the turn. There are some super valid arguments for that. I don't mind those arguments, but I like to bet for value even in double board bomb pots because I don't mind taking my chances multi-way. So I end up betting $425. As you can see, the first 2 players end up mucking. Gentleman on the button is going in the tank a little bit. He realizes, well, the bottom's probably completely given up. Half the pot's given up. He goes ahead and mucks. One player's all in. And now we get back to another player who is just sat down at the table and seems really, really splashy, and he's going in the tank for a little bit. Typically, when somebody's going in the tank like this on a double board bomb pot, it means that they either have like second nuts on one board, or they might have just like a dry 10. So they might have like 10 queen, 10 with like a pair of fours, who knows? They might have equity on both boards. But the guy is definitely going in the tank for a little bit. He is a little bit more of a splashy rec player, and then he just says, oh, what the hell, I guess I'm just going to go all in just for a couple $100 more. Now, obviously, I snap call him. I tell him I have the nut hearts on the bottom. I also tell him I have a gut shot straight draw and a pocket pair on the top. Let's see what kind of runouts we get. Ooh, we get the 9 on the top. So we have the nut straight, and it's a clean runout on the bottom. I table my hand. We end up winning the side pot. We end up scooping the side pot. And on the top, the other gentleman did end up having 10 jack. So we're going to chop the whole pot. Moving right along to the next hand, we look down at ace 7 9 9 with the 7 9 of clubs and the dry ace of hearts. Now, in a hand like this, I like to raise it pre-flop. So let's talk about this for a second, because there's a lot of people out there who will say, well, this is a good calling hand, not necessarily a raising hand, and I could see making a call with a hand like this. On the flip side, I do like to play for bigger pots. I do not like playing for $50, $100 pots nonstop. And sometimes driving the action, there's nothing wrong with it, because when you do flop something big, you should get paid off quite handsomely. In this situation, it's basically just a juicer, just a small little $20 raise. Now, on a small little $20 raise like that, what's going to happen? Well, we are in Texas, so we are going to get plenty of callers. We actually end up getting 7 callers going to the flop. Now, see, this is a hand that I like to have to build a pot with, versus if we just limped, there would have been $35 in the pot. Instead, now we have $140 in the pot. So let's see what develops on the flop. The flop comes out, 6 9 10. So we flop middle set. We have a gut shot straight draw. And this is a board that is very, very wet. Obviously, somebody can already have the nuts with 7 8, even though we are blocking a 7. Keep in mind, there's still 3 other 7s out there. And yeah, we have a set of 9s, so we're obviously not going anywhere. So the first player decides to lead out and bets pot for $140. Well, $140 is a really good value for me to call. Obviously, we can go backdoor clubs. There is the 10 of clubs out there, 6 9 of spades. So we do have a backdoor club draw. We do have a straight draw. One person decides to go all in. He ends up going all in for a little bit more than the initial 140. I think he's all in there for like 250, somewhere around there. And we're going to get a couple of players. So we're going to get 1 caller, 2 callers, myself. This pot ends up being quite substantially large. Now, this is, I guess, one thing that you would say would just be pot odds. So in a situation like this, I mean, obviously we can be beat because there is a straight on the board. There are 2 spades out there, but we already put in the $140. So when it's 110 more to call, we're getting really, really good odds. I think it's like 110 to call to win like 1,000. So we're basically getting like 9 to 1 on our money. So we end up making the call, and we're going to go see what the turn is. The turn does not improve anybody's hands. It ends up being the 3 of hearts, one of the brickest of cards you can put out there. So nothing about this board became more equitable or more juicy for us, but that's okay because we still have middle set, and I don't think we're going to go anywhere. So the first player ends up leading out. He bets all in for $155. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, it's $155 to win like $1,700. Another player behind me ends up calling. The river comes out another spade, and it doesn't put out any straight out there. And we're 4 ways into this pot. We are heads up on a side pot, and the guy says the 3 of spades did not help my hand. So I check it back, and I turn over a set of 9s. I was just getting so much odds there. And yeah, somebody flopped the nut straight. They're not going to scoop it, though, because the spade came in. The other player who was all in ended up having a spade draw. So we end up losing this one, which sucks, but sometimes that happens. When you get the right odds to call, you just got to call and let the card gods decide whether or not you're going to win. So let's take a look at hand here. We are involved in a double board bomb pot situation. We're already on the flop. We have ace 9, 10 king with the suited king 10 of diamonds. So let's take a look at what we actually have here on a double board bomb pot. The first board has king 9 5 complete rainbow, and the bottom board has king 10 7 complete rainbow. We actually flop an absolute monster right here. We have top 2 on the top board, and we have top 2 on the bottom board. The reason why that's important is because you're blocking so many top sets and middle sets that it's unlikely anybody's going to have that. Now, it is a little draw heavy in the form of straight. So somebody with like 6, 7, 8, 9 can call because they have a straight on both boards. Or if they have like 10, jack, queen, king can call because, again, they'll have straights on both boards. So when you do flop a monster like this, obviously you want the most amount of value as possible, but also you want to charge all straight draws as much as possible. So you can see here there's a $135 bet because we're already on the flop. So I actually pot it. It's really rare for me to pot it on double board bomb pots. The reason why is because when you pot a double board bomb pot and then check the turn, it makes it really easy for your opponent to figure out what you have. Whereas if you bet for value on the flop and then continue to bet for value or increase your bet, then it's much more difficult for your opponent to find out what you have. So for somebody like myself to just do a full pot size bet on a double board bomb pot really demonstrates that I'm going to have a lot of strength. So when I go ahead and bet pot, obviously I want as many people to call as possible because we do want to build up a nice big pot. So we end up getting a couple different callers in this situation here. And it was a full pot size bet, so we're going to go to the turn, which ends up coming out pretty decent. The jack of hearts up top and then the 6 of clubs down below. Now that does bring in a heart draw up top and a club draw down below, but when it checks to me, there's $405 in the pot. I decided to lead out and bet $400. I'm doing this to charge all draws possible, and I have position. Now, obviously, there are straights that are out there, but I'm still doing it because if somebody had a straight, I would have heard from them, and they probably would have potted it into me, would be my guess. So I have to assume that I still have the best hand. Now let's see what the river brings us. The river brings us an 8 of clubs on top and a deuce of hearts down below. Now, anytime you're involved in a double board bomb pot, you're a heads-up situation, and your opponent checks to you, it almost makes sense to just bet 100% of the time because it's really hard for your opponent to scoop you on both boards. Now, obviously, even if you're polarized and you are super nutted on one board, you should do it. In this situation, I'm not super nutted on either board, but since I have 2 pair on both boards, it's incredibly hard for me to get scooped. So I go ahead and rip it all in. Ripping it all in is $825 or so. That's what the dealer's figuring out right now. And the guy goes in the tank for a little bit. The reason why is because he has 6-7. So there are times when he can get scooped here. For example, if I have 10 Queen X, I turn over my hand after he makes the call. I announce 2 pair, 2 pair. He announced that he has a straight on the top board and 2 pair on the bottom board. But you could see he was pretty vulnerable to being scooped. But we end up chopping this one, which is what the card gods wanted us to do. So here's a nice fun hand. We're already going to the flop. I 3-bet it to 120 pre-flop with ace, 6, 7. Let's talk about pocket aces for a minute. Now, when you first start playing Pot Limit Omaha, or if you're a really conservative player, a lot of people don't like to 3-bet with pocket aces. They're like, Professor, I just use them as a set minder. Now, keep in mind, if you're playing pocket aces like pocket 9s or pocket 10s, you're playing them improperly. Yes, you're going to get them a lot more in Omaha, but you also have to keep in mind that they are the biggest pair out there. Yes, you're only going to flop them 1 out of 7 times, but you have 2 nut flush blockers. And that means a lot because a lot of times people don't like to be drawing to not the nuts in Pot Limit Omaha. So if you are new to Pot Limit Omaha, or even if you're a little tighter, I would encourage you to expand your range a little bit and 3-bet a little bit more with pocket aces. Because even when you 3-bet with pocket aces, sure, like this example right here, we are going to get 5 callers. We're going to go 6 ways to the flop, which is absolutely insane, which means we need to flop an absolute monster in order for us to continue. Or do we? Or do we just need to flop something that is either a disconnected board or maybe flop something that might be draw heavy? Let's find out. So here we go. We're going to the flop, and the flop comes 3, 4, 10 with 2 diamonds. Now, we do have the ace of high diamond draw, which obviously is a great hand for us. So there's $600 in the pot. I like to bet 500. Now, keep in mind, there was 4 other callers here in this board, so I'm essentially picking up $480 because I decided to take an aggressive route and to 3-bet with pocket aces. Because when I bet out $500, it goes fold, 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 folds around to the last guy who's going in the tank, and that guy starts thinking, well, heck, it's only 500 for me to call to now possibly win 1,100, but he ends up making the right lay down and lays it down, and I show pocket aces, and we scoop a decent pot. So let's take a look at another hand that I like to play aggressive. It's a rundown hand, complete rundown, 5, 6, 7, 9 with the 5, 6 of hearts. Now you can see out there's $120 out there because I ended up 3-betting. This is a hand that, yes, is very valuable to 3-bet. The reason why is because it's a lot more connected than a lot of other hands that random opponents are going to have. Also, the reason why you want to 3-bet with this hand is because even if you're up against a hand like pocket aces, as long as it's not suited in the heart variety, your equity against pocket aces is going to be somewhere in the range of like 40 to 48%, depending on what their danglers and their other 2 cards are. The reason why I keep pointing out these hands in pre-flop raising, given, don't get me wrong, pot limit Omaha is definitely a post-flop game, but there are times, especially when you are deeper stacked, where 3-betting makes a lot of sense. And even if you look at your opponents and you see that some of them are short stacked, it still makes sense to 3-bet, because if you 3-bet here and you get 4-bet from an opponent, you can assume that they have aces or kings, and then you have enough equity to go ahead and run with it. So when I raise to 120, we get 1 caller, and then we get 1 person behind that, the original raiser, who decides that he's just going to rip it all in. He just says, you know what, I'm all in for 485. I snap call. I don't even hesitate. Part of the reason why I snap call is because this is the same individual who had 3 hearts on the double board bomb pot. So I know at best he has pocket aces, and he could have a lot of other hands too, because he did seem like a pretty splashy player. That's one thing that these vlogs do not show, is how splashy people are, but just trust me when I say this was a pretty good call. So the flop comes 9, deuce, 10, so we pick up a pair. Turn comes a jack of hearts, so we do have a pair and a straight draw, and the river comes a 5. I immediately table my hand expecting that it's good, 5s and 9s, even though there's 3 clubs out there. He's staring at his hand a little bit, and he eventually says, yep, 5s and 9s is going to beat my hand. So you can see hands like this, even though it might be 9 high, can end up scooping a decent sized pot. But don't get me wrong, there are a lot of conservative players out there who will say, hey, you know, I prefer to pick a better spot where I have more equity. And that is perfectly fine and legit. I have no issues with people who play like that. I like to show hands like this because I like to demonstrate to people that there are more than one type of style, and there is more than one type of way you can play a hand to be profitable. Some people will, you know, say I'm very rarely 3-betting, or I'm never 3-betting. Some other people who are going to be more aggressive, particularly when you're deep stacked, are going to 3-bet a lot more, or if you're in position. But 3-betting pre-flop is something that isn't talked about a lot in pot limit Omaha, but it really should be, because it can generate you additional winnings in your poker life.